Welcome to this video, The Divine Perspective. Let us begin in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. What we attempt to do in this video is explain the divine perspective with some illustrations that will help us answer some questions regarding it. In this first illustration, what we're doing is we're utilizing a vehicle that's often used by physics to explain concepts that are more difficult to understand. And what we're doing is we're creating this two-dimensional world for us to be able to relate the divine perspective from our own view. So let's look at this two-dimensional hypothetical world where we have a hypothetical atom, and we can see by looking at this illustration that Adam has a past and he has a future, and in the future he's going to get married, and that's what the church represents in his future. Of course, he doesn't know that that will occur. Now let's take another important role, and the role would be from the divinity's perspective. So we need someone to play God, and that will be you, the viewer. So you see Adam as he is now, and you see his past, and you see his future. And all of those events in Adam's life, his birth, the way he is today, his present, and all of the events in his future, in this case, his marriage, are visible to you. And that's what Fr John Brown referred to as the eternal now. It's all the events, and Louisa expressed it in the same manner. All those events are present to you now. So this raises the question, if you're living in the divine will and you're doing everything you're supposed to, why don't you see these acts in the future and in the past for individuals? And we're going to turn to a couple very known saints to help us with that answer. One is St. Padre Pio. And St. Padre Pio had this gift of this divine perspective that we're discussing now. And he was asked by one of his friars, how is it that he knows these events that would happen in the future, or even events that happened in the past for people he didn't know? And St. Padre Pio explained it like this. He said, he can see everything through him who lives within him. In other words, through Christ. And he's basically explaining what this divine perspective is. Now, this gift that St. Padre Pio had is often referred to as reading of souls. However, it's not really the reading of souls or reading of hearts. It is this divine perspective, the ability to see the acts past, present, and future. When some penitent came to Padre Pio, they were not just present as we would see them today. They're present with all of their acts that have occurred in the past and that will occur in the future. The next saint is also an extremely well-known confessor, St. John Vianney. And I've actually read more about St. John Vianney than I have about Padre Pio. And I can share an account where he discussed speaking with a penitent, and he brought up something in the penitent's life that he had no way of knowing. And it went something like this. He asked the penitent about something that happened in his family, and the penitent was a very extroverted and shocked penitent to hear what he said. And he exclaimed, how do you know this? I never spoken of this, and I never told you about this. And I guess also St. John Vianney was somewhat shocked by the penitent's impertinence, and he said that he thought that he told him about this event. And that speaks to how these events are known, these events in the divine perspective. In other words, events that have occurred in the past and the future. There's three faculties of the soul because we're images of God. We share the essence of God. We share the image of God's will, the memory, and intellect. St. John Vianney was saying he remembered. This event was in his memory. So a question could be, how can these events that are yet to happen in the future be part of the faculty of the memory? We have to remember that these events in the future are in the future of the individual. They're not in the future of God. Those events are present to God, just like the events in the past are present to God. There's no differentiation between the past and the future in the divine perspective. They are all present at once to God. In other words, these events are in the memory of the soul, and it's a gift. Now, when we share the divine will, we don't necessarily receive that gift. We will perhaps through illumination or through God's magnanimity. He may decide to share a given gift with us. And definitely, I think as you go through the fourth degree and you go higher within the fourth degree, like a Luisa Picaretta, or one of the saints, maybe Saint Annabelle as well, you may receive that gift. Because as we fuse with God and God's will, we're fusing with the essence of God, and we cannot help but also to experience the other faculties or essences of God, which is his memory and his intellect. Luisa Picaretta definitely had it. When she was speaking to her family members, she said that Father Bucci, as a young child, very young child, would be a priest. And Father Bucci related this event by saying that at first the relatives thought it was the other relative, who was a young man also, but more reserved. And they said, will it be this one? And Luisa said, no, it would be this one, Father Bucci. So she definitely had the gift as well. And it's possible to maybe get an experience of that gift while living in the divine will. Because as I mentioned in many videos, God often opens a door and gives you a glimpse of what could happen or what could be. In other words, what a gift could be that's waiting for you. And it may be a very small experience, but it's possible. Now let us return to our initial illustration, but this time with one change. In this case, Adam now is living in the divine will, and we'll see, or we'll attempt to illustrate what the divine acts will look like as Adam generates those through participation with Jesus in the divine will. So the first block is symbolized by the dove, is a divine act. And the divine act enters all time and space. Doesn't just enter it, but occupies all time and space because of the infinite nature of the divine will. Remember, Jesus explains to Luisa that the divine will exists everywhere and in everything, and so do the divine acts. Now, the concept I'm trying to explain here in the next one is the divine act also contains within itself, just like I mentioned in the divine will, it contains everything. So everything within space and time is contained within that divine act also. And you can see it doesn't just end there. It continues. It goes on and on. It unfolds within itself into infinity. And Jesus explains again to Luisa in the Book of Heaven that That is the infinite nature of the divine act. And that's why the divine act has infinite merits. And it's a concept that's difficult for us to understand, but we have to understand the divine act via the participation of the divinity and how it assumes the nature of divinity. I hope this helps explain how we can prepare for acts that we do not know, even acts within our own lives that we do not remember, or acts in the future that are yet to come. And I want to thank you for joining, and as always, please like this video and subscribe. It helps us promote this content. Thank you, and God bless.